I'm Amy, thank you for tuning in. I had a really good month in March, quite quiet because I did a lot of writing, did some family stuff, read quite a few books. But one exciting thing that happened was we did get to finally announce the anthology that I've co-curated with my friend Mina, which is going to be called A Taste of Darkness. It comes out in the middle of September and it features loads of amazing UKYA authors like Melinda Salisbury, Dawn Kurtagich, Kat Ellis, Cynthia Murphy, Catherine Foxfield, absolutely loads of brilliant people, and it's going to be really scary, really fun, and I'm so excited to be involved with it. So that was nice to be able to talk about that finally. In this video I'm going to talk about the books that I read in March, a bit more of a mixed bag than usual because there was one book that I DNF'd, which is quite unusual for me recently because I've just been choosing so many books that I've enjoyed. I haven't really felt the need to DNF them. Quite a lot of books that are kind of out of my reading comfort zone but that I really enjoyed, and then some absolutely amazing books I would highly recommend that you read. So first we'll go to the book that I DNF'd, and that was The Picture of Dorian Gray. I really wanted to like this one. I even bought the cloth-bound classic edition. I just had quite a lot of problems with it. I didn't really gel with the voice. It felt like one of the main characters in particular was really self-important. Didn't agree with his viewpoints, which I know that you don't have to do with a character to get on with the book, but when you're just kind of having to inhabit a character's head that you really don't like, in this one I just couldn't get on with it. So as much as I wanted to know what happened, because I've heard some things about the ending, I didn't unfortunately get there. So maybe if it's a good adaptation, let me know in the comments because I'd love to actually find out what happens, but I just can't get through the book, sadly. Next up to an absolutely amazing book, Bite Risk by S.J. Wills. It is a teen book. I want to call it a werewolf book, but it's kind of a slight reinterpretation of the werewolf in that they're called rippers. This town has been cut off from a society that has been overrun with this problem that parents all over are being turned into becoming werewolves at the full moon, and their children kind of have to pick up the slack and look after them. So that sounds cool enough in and of itself, but this book takes an amazing direction of becoming a really tense thriller. I loved the world building, I love the voice. So this one was the total opposite of The Picture of Dorian Gray, because whereas all the things that annoy me about that, I loved about this one. Great characters, great voice. It comes out in June and I definitely recommend ordering this. If you're not sure whether you normally read teen books, I would say it kind of bridges that MGYA boundary really nicely. It's scary and gory. It has the feel that some MG readers will be able to read it. Definitely if you enjoy YA books, I would pick up this one too. Next up, I read a couple of Harper Connelly books. I'm going to kind of talk about these together because they're much of the same. They continue the same story. I'm still on my mission to read all of Charlaine Harris's books because I love them. I am enjoying this series. I'd say that in terms of favourite orders, the Sucky Stackhouse and Aurora Tea Garden books are my favourite. These I really enjoyed, but there's a slight, I don't know, I really like dark books, but there's a slight underpinning of darkness all the way through these because of who Harper Connelly is and what she can do. She can tell how somebody died. I'm looking at the books if it'll remind me of what happens in it. So she can tell how somebody died by standing near where their body is resting. So because of that, I think it feels quite kind of sombre in tone, whereas I think Charlaine Harris's other books, although they deal with dark subjects, are quite playful. So I do enjoy these, but I think I have to be in the right mindset for those, whereas the others I would just pick up anytime and have fun with them. So those are called An Ice Cold Grave and Grave Surprise. I think it's books 2 and 3 in the series. I will complete the series, but it's just not my favourite so far. Another book, I'm kind of going between books I feel ambivalent about or dislike to books that I love this month, it seems, because Legends and Lattes was so good. I've had a bit of a weird relationship with fantasy lately where, particularly high fantasy, I've just not felt a huge urge to pick it up, but this one says on the front, high fantasy, low stakes, good company. And the whole thing is that the stuff about high fantasy that I don't get on with, the big battles, the really complex politics that I just can't understand. This one is just a cosy book about character. I think she's an orc. I've instantly forgotten. Because yeah, Viv is an orc barbarian. She goes to set up a coffee shop, and it's just the most heartwarming, lovely book. There's some mild peril. You need some peril to keep a book going, but you feel really happy and warm when you're reading it. And it was one of those where I was reading it really fast and kept having to stop myself because I wanted more. And the next book, which I believe is a prequel, comes out later in the year, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to wait till then, so I tried to make this last as long as I could. It's absolutely brilliant. If you think that you have any inkling to read any fantasy, please give this one a go, because it's probably one of the best fantasy books I've read in as long as I can remember. Next up we have a sequel, Don't Fear the Reaper. My Heart is a Chainsaw was one of my favourite books I read last year, so I had really high hopes for the sequel, and I did really enjoy this one. I think I slightly prefer the first book just because, you know, that thing of being established in the world, getting to know the characters. Without spoiling it, there are a couple of plot devices that Stephen Graham Jones employs in the first book that I absolutely loved, that he couldn't do again in the second book because he'd kind of already been there and done that. So I liked this one a lot, absolutely adored the first one, so I'd definitely recommend picking this up. It carries on Jade's story, now going as Jennifer, and there are more murderous hijinks going on. It's one of those books where you just know that there's going to be a new murderer of the week, and I love that about it. I love the horror movie references. It's such a good series. I think it's going to be a trilogy. And I also really like the fact that these books kind of have a touch of the supernatural and the kind of speculative, and you quite often don't know where reality ends and sort of the supernatural begins. So yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed them. Just, yeah, maybe this one was sort of a 4.5 star for me as opposed to the last one being a 5 star, so not a big deal. Next up, I read an anthology. You can tell now why I've been craving anthologies lately, because I've been working on one for quite a while. This one is called Found. I'm going to show you the cool spine. It's an anthology of found footage stories. I think some of them stuck more closely to the found footage sort of vibe, in my opinion, than others. There are some absolutely amazing stories in here. I think what I like about an anthology is if there's a voice that you don't gel with as much, or a story that doesn't quite land in the same way that you want it to, then there'll be some that you really do get on with. So this one, there were enough stories in it that I absolutely loved that I definitely recommend picking this one up. Next, a book totally out of my usual genre, kind of cute, cosy, contemporary, but with a touch of people dealing with real issues. So this is about a girl who goes viral writing an article about this boy that she's dating, and it's going amazing. Love story in the making, and yet he doesn't exist. So it's a fake dating story where she ends up fake dating a famous Chinese movie star, as you do, who happens to go to her school. And I loved seeing the relationship develop between those two, from not knowing each other and pretending to date, and you can find out for yourself how that pans out. But I just thought it was kind of fun, funny, and heartwarming at the same time as the characters dealing with some real stuff. There's a lot in this book, and the main character, I think if I remember rightly, she was born in China. Her family are of Chinese heritage, and she's now living in China again, and she spent a lot of her life trying to figure out where she belongs. So there's a really good sense of learning about the culture where she is and learning about how she feels that she fits into that. So I thought that was really, really beautifully done by the author. So very, very excited about this one. I haven't read any other books by Anne Liang. I'm not sure if this is their debut or not, but I definitely will check out more. And then I've carried on reading the Morganville Vampire series. I've gotten a little bit slow with this one, to be honest. I was planning to read a book a month, and instead I've ended up reading them sort of in dribs and drabs. I think the reason for that is that I'm not enjoying them quite as much on the reread as I did the first time I read them. There's a couple of odd things that feel like haven't aged well / shouldn't have been in there all to begin with. Like, the girls in the book seem to, every time they're in a group with boys, there's quite a lot of mentions of them being casually touched by boys and things like that, and them acknowledging in the book that it's not the right thing, but also that it's something that they just have to deal with, and it left me feeling really uncomfortable. So if that's something that would make you feel uncomfortable too, then please bear that in mind when you're reading. However, the plot is still really good. It picks up where the first book left off. There are very high stakes. I really hate saying that about vampire books, but there are. In this one, I like the fact that Rachel Kane did really manage to up it and up the tension. Again, it doesn't have that feel like the first book, as I was saying with some of the other books I've discussed. When you're reading a first book, I think, and getting to know characters and their forging relationships, I think I always love that the most, if it's done really well. So yeah, I'm probably going to continue this series, but maybe not reading a book a month like I originally set out to do. This month's YA Book Club read was 1,000,000 to 1. We've just done a live show, and I really appreciate Jem, Charlie and Shan doing that with me. I had a great time chatting about the book. In terms of my review, I really like the fact that the YA Book Club is getting me to read books I wouldn't necessarily have picked up. Like, A Heist on the Titanic sounds really fun, but it isn't normally the type of thing I'd probably go for. And actually, I thought that it was a really great read, and the tension absolutely built through the book, and the fact that you knew that the girls were on the Titanic just added this incredible sense of dread all the way through. I had a few theories about how the book would go, but generally it kind of kept me on my toes with lots of twists and turns, and I thought that the mystery side of it and the thriller side of it was really well done. I also thought that a real strength of the writing was the characters. I love the fact that there were 4 narrators, which isn't always my favourite device, but in this case it allowed us to delve into the 4 characters really nicely and get to know them and what they had to offer to the heist. So that was another really good pick, by the way, book club. Thank you for the people who voted it in the Goodreads group. Our April read is going to be The Lost Girls, which I'm really excited about. It's our vampire pick, and I'm going to be reading all vampire books next month, so that should be interesting. So that is it. Really a mixed bag for this month. Some books I absolutely adored, some were okay, and then some I didn't enjoy as much. So thank you so much for watching, and please let me know in the comments if you've read any of those books and what you thought of them, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.